Banjo Kazooie has been a franchise that fans have been screaming and begging to come back. I mean, Crash Bandicoot, Spyro the Dragon, and even Medieval. Bloody Medieval made a comeback. So why couldn't Banjo Kazooie? Right beside Super Mario 64, Banjo Kazooie was a pioneer in the 3D platformer and collectathon genre. While their arrival to Super Smash Bros. Broke a lot of narratives and brought the franchise back in front of a newer audience, we still have not seen the Baron Bird Wombo combo come back in either a brand new game or even a remaster. However, recently there have been comments and developments that allude and suggest that a Banjo Kazooie may start development sooner rather than later, and it is possible there is a team that already is interested in making it. Let's talk about it. What's up guys, Canadian Guy here, and back with a Banjo Kazooie video. It has been years since I made a dedicated Banjo Kazooie video, and I think it's finally high time we start talking about this dynamic duo once more. Now there has been some Banjo information floating around for a while now, but I was not quite ready to pull the trigger on expanding or exploring it. Until recently, that is. Jez Corden, an editor over at Microsoft Central, got an amazing interview with Phil Spencer, the CEO of Xbox. And Phil actually gave a shout out to Banjo Kazooie during the interview. But before we dive into that specific interview, I want to clear up some common misconceptions about Banjo Kazooie and how it's actually handled. Many have asked for a brand new Banjo game for years and have also blamed Xbox for it not making any kind of a comeback. However, under Phil Spencer's lead, this is not the case. Spencer has noted in many interviews and in many articles that it's strictly up to the studios on what they want to work on. In fact, in another previous article, he specifically called out Banjo Kazooie, saying that a new Banjo would be up to Rare if they wanted to develop it. So, what's stopping Rare from going back to Banjo Kazooie? Well, themselves, actually. The current director at Rare had this to say on the idea of bringing back Banjo Kazooie. Quote, "I don't think it's okay to just go make the same game that people loved before, but with up-to-date graphics, audio, and all those things. Just making them again with whatever technology is available today. That's not Rare," Duncan said. "I think what Rare is doing the kind of games that only Rare would go do. Like, no one else would go make Sea of Thieves in the way we're making Sea of Thieves. And I think unless you got an absolutely killer, amazing idea for how you would bring maybe an existing IP or maybe one of those franchises and do something new with it from a gameplay paradigm or scenario or something that could actually be genuinely different and innovative, I don't think you just redo them. I think that would be the worst thing for Rare to do, honestly," he added. Now, whether or not you agree with that statement is up to you, but personally, I strongly disagree with it. But nevertheless, even if Rare wanted to revisit Banjo Kazooie, most, if not probably all of the old guard that used to work at Rare during the Rare Golden era has probably moved on to different studios. And most notably, a number of them went and established Playtonic Games, where they created their new mascot duo, Yooka-Laylee. So even if Rare was interested, it largely wouldn't be the Rare that originally made Banjo Kazooie. But surely there has to be another team under Xbox that could handle Banjo Kazooie, right? What about Double Fine? Double Fine made Psychonauts 2 and it was incredibly well received. Couldn't they just work on a new Banjo Kazooie? Actually, they very much could. In fact, for a while, this was a rumor that was floating around. However, Tim Schafer, the founder of Double Fine, was asked about this rumor specifically, and he quickly turned down not only the rumor, but the idea overall. Quote, "It's interesting to think about, but I feel that that wouldn't be the best use of Double Fine because I think our whole thing is making stuff up. People somehow got in their heads that we should do a Banjo Kazooie game. Why should Double Fine make Banjo Kazooie? You heard about this company called Rare? Because I think they're still around." And again, to hammer this point in, through a number of other posts and other comments, Double Fine has made sure to state that they are not working and don't want to work on a Banjo Kazooie title. So, alas, no team apparently thus far under Xbox seems to be interested in bringing back the Baron Bird combo. And with how Phil Spencer handles the studios, he's not going to start forcing people to develop games that they don't want to. So, now what? Well, let's go back to that interview between Jez and Spencer. Jez asked Phil about mentioning StarCraft at BlizzCon 2023 while he was on stage, and what Microsoft's approach is to teasing games. Phil then turned and said this, quote, "You've seen from our history that we haven't touched every franchise that people would love us to touch. Banjo fans, I hear you. But it is true that when we find the right team and the right opportunity, I love going back to revisit stories and characters that we've seen previously," Spencer said. I want to make a note here. Banjo Kazooie was never brought up, alluded to, or referenced by Jez in this entire interview. Phil Spencer himself brought up Banjo Kazooie as an example of a franchise that people have wanted, but they haven't gotten the opportunity to develop for it yet. So, Phil knows that people really want to see a brand new Banjo Kazooie, and he hears you. Additionally, he seems to be on board with the idea, but this still doesn't solve the problem of who would develop it, because there needs to be an interested team under Xbox that would actually want to develop this game. Actually, here's the thing. There might now be a team that is interested in developing a brand new Banjo Kazooie, and it is a team that I believe is worthy of taking the reins of the project. If you've been living under a rock, Xbox has recently acquired Activision Blizzard for just shy of $70 billion, which now means that every IP that Activision and Blizzard owns is now owned by Xbox, along with every game studio that worked under Activision. However, this also means that there is a massive new wave of potential studios that now has access to Microsoft's IP as well. Now, all we need is to see if there's any studio that's actually interested and has the skills to pull off Banjo Kazooie's epic comeback. And I'm here to tell you that a studio may have been found. A couple of years back, a member of the Crash and Spyro community, Dazzling Dazad, made a Twitter post showing a slew of different platformer IPs, asking everyone which game would you give a sequel to, but the stipulation to the post was that you could only pick two. Down here, a user by the name of Paul Yan said Spyro and Banjo. Now, for those who don't know, who exactly is Paul Yan? Well, Paul Yan is the Chief Creative Officer and Studio Head at Toys for Bob. Toys for Bob has been around for a long time, but really became known for their development of the Skylanders series. They essentially started one of the biggest genres in gaming, Toys to Life. However, after Skylanders, Toys for Bob hit the map once again with being the studio behind Spyro's remastered comeback in the Spyro Reignited trilogy and creating the new modern direction of Crash Bandicoot in Crash Bandicoot 4 It's About Time. Want to know who owns Toys for Bob? Activision. Remember who just bought Activision? Yep, Xbox. Which means Xbox now owns a studio that has experience with two classic platforming icons that originally came out during the same golden 3D platforming era as Banjo Kazooie, and has a high-ranking creative decision maker that's interested in seeing Banjo getting a comeback. Ladies and gentlemen, Toys for Bob may very well become the new developers of a brand new Banjo Kazooie title. What's even cooler is the fact they have experience in both remaking and continuing upon previous sequels. This of course is evidenced by Spyro Reignited and Crash 4, which means if Toys for Bob is handling a new Banjo Kazooie title, they could go in either direction. Additionally, in the interview with Jez, Phil said the following, quote, "I want our fans and customers to know that I don't bring up games just to tease to no end. If people have watched how we've teased things in the past, there's usually some kind of reconciliation on those hints later on. I'm not one to try and lead people on. It might not happen on the timeline that people would love, but usually when I tease, there's something there." What's ironic about this is that he literally said this right after mentioning Banjo Kazooie. So is it possible that Phil bringing up Banjo Kazooie out of the blue is him teasing that a project is actually in the works like he had just said? I'll let you decide on that. However, before you jump up and start cheering and saying that Banjo Kazooie is going to be making an epic comeback soon, I have to warn you, we may have to wait a long time if it is. Like Phil said, it might not happen on the timeline that people would love. At the time of making this video, the Activision and Blizzard deal officially closed just over a month ago, which means that even if Toys for Bob started development on a Banjo Kazooie title the day after the deal closed, we are still years away from seeing a Toys for Bob led Banjo Kazooie title. Not to mention, Toys for Bob is still working on Crash Team Rumble, which is their online multiplayer Crash Bandicoot game, which requires ongoing work. But there is some evidence to suggest that we could see Banjo and Kazooie in the future as a guest character for Crash Team Rumble, as other guest characters are also officially joining. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. Bye-bye!